There was a time when saying the name Sean Combs meant raw success. Harlem, its streets, its dreams, its struggles, and him, a young man who had seen it all, understood it all, conquered it all. Diddy, Puff Daddy, P. Diddy, whatever the name, he embodied the unstoppable rise of a man who came from nothing. With sharp instinct, relentless work, and unshakable ambition, he crowned himself king in a kingdom he built from the ground up, hip-hop. A brilliant producer, a talent scout, a visionary executive, a natural-born entrepreneur. He launched careers the way others launched fashion trends. Mace, The Lox, Faith Evans, Mary J. Blige, and above all, Notorious B.I.G. Every artist he touched seemed to turn into a star. He wasn't just making music, he was building an aesthetic, a cultural empire, a lifestyle. But music was just the beginning. He launched his clothing brand, Sean John. He founded Revolt TV, a network he envisioned as a voice for Black culture. He partnered with vodka labels, fragrances, phone companies, real estate ventures. He graced magazine covers, rubbed shoulders with fashion moguls and heads of state alike, danced in his own videos, and signed deals worth tens of millions. Back then, everything seemed possible. His name alone opened doors. C-Rock, an unknown vodka turned cultural phenomenon. Sean John, a brand walking the runways of Fashion Week. Revolt, a network born out of multi-million-dollar ambition. Diddy wasn't just a celebrity, he was an institution. But behind the lights and red carpets, the foundation was more fragile than it looked. His fortune, though valued in the hundreds of millions, wasn't liquid. A lot of assets, not much cash. A strategy built on image, credit, trust, mortgaged homes, shares in companies he didn't fully control. A luxury lifestyle funded by a delicate balance between perception and reality. He was a master of leverage, and as long as everyone believed, it worked. As long as his name held value, as long as brands invested in him, as long as the media called him a mogul, the illusion held. But an empire built on perception can crumble in an instant. All it takes is a name, a testimony, a lawsuit. And that name was Cassie Ventura. Cassie Ventura. To many, she was just a quiet singer, a familiar figure by Diddy's side for years, then suddenly gone. Their relationship had always been murky, sometimes public, sometimes denied. But those watching closely suspected something darker, a grip he refused to release. In November 2023, Cassie broke the silence. She filed a lawsuit in federal court. The content was chilling. She described physical abuse, repeated sexual assault, constant psychological manipulation, and most damning, a system of exploitation that crossed state lines. This wasn't a private dispute anymore. It was a federal sex trafficking accusation, backed by concrete details, testimony, and evidence. Diddy's response was swift, but silent. No press conference, no denial, no public showdown. Within 24 hours, a financial settlement was reached. Estimated value, $20 million. No words, no apology, no admission, just a check. But the payment didn't bury the story. It ignited it. The speed, the almost panicked nature of the payout sent a message. Something needed hiding. Something Cassie knew. And maybe others knew too. And those others didn't wait long. In the weeks that followed, the lawsuits multiplied. First a few, then dozens. Women, former employees, behind-the-scenes collaborators, all describing similar patterns. Coercion, threats, abuse, humiliation, hush contracts, discreet payments. Some even mentioned blackmail tapes. Others spoke of minors. Testimonies piled up. More names were added to the list. The dam had broken, and behind the image of the mogul, a system began to emerge. a system built on control, secrecy, and lockdown relationships. A machine sustained for years through non-disclosure agreements, high-powered lawyers, and off-the-record payoffs. But this time, the fire couldn't be contained. In just 8 months, legal costs exploded. Over $45 million spent trying to plug the holes. Legal fees, negotiations, confidential settlements. Diddy wasn't paying to fix anything. He was paying to delay everything. But the money was running out. Because despite the image sold for years, he wasn't swimming in cash. His properties were leveraged. His companies were losing value. His partners were pulling out. And with each passing day, a new attack landed. A subpoena, an investigation, a leak, a testimony, a raid. The foundation was shaking. The empire was faltering. And this wasn't just about public image anymore. It was a race against collapse. When an empire starts to crack, everything accelerates. And for Diddy, the warning signs became impossible to ignore. First major blow. Diageo, the spirits giant behind Ciroc, cut ties. No scandalous press release, just a clean, silent break. But the message was loud. The Diddy brand was no longer an asset. It had become a liability. Revolt TV, once his bold cultural project, was slowly imploding. Ratings tanked, advertisers fled, staff departures piled up. Even though he had already sold off some shares, his name alone was now enough to drain the company's remaining credibility. Sean John, once a signature fashion line, had become a ghost on the shelves, forgotten, gutted, futureless. But beyond the businesses, the core of his empire was crumbling. Trust. Investors backed out. Brands erased any trace of partnership. Former collaborators, once fiercely loyal, turned away. And in the silence, he began selling. Fast. At a loss. In April 2024, he offloaded a Miami Beach mansion, valued at $42 million, sold for $35, $7 million, gone. That wasn't a strategy. That was a retreat. He tried to sell his Beverly Hills estate too, but that house had been raided. It was officially part of an active investigation. No one wanted it. Not even hedge funds would accept it as collateral. Too risky, too exposed. The luxury cars vanished next, transferred, relocated, hidden away. Some said it was just storage. Others whispered he was shielding them from future seizures. One thing was clear. His assets had become inaccessible, frozen, unsellable, and behind every property loomed the shadow of legal action. But that wasn't the end. More voices stepped forward. Former bodyguards shared their stories, detailing his habits, naming names, describing what they saw, what they did, what they were paid to cover up. Personal assistants started shopping book deals. Others met with federal authorities. Former staff painted a picture of what happened behind the scenes. Cash payments, lockdown parties, erratic behavior, psychological pressure. And slowly another thread began to unravel. Suspicion of financial crimes. A former logistics coordinator claimed millions had been funneled into offshore shell companies in the Cayman Islands and Malta. Fake services, fake events, accounts linked to close associates, transfers made after the Cassie settlement, as if the goal was to hide, scatter, and protect the assets from seizure. Prosecutors were watching, and the accusations grew sharper. This wasn't just about sexual violence or reputation anymore. This was looking like a federal case. Money laundering, embezzlement, asset flight, the creation of shadow entities to dodge seizure. And in the face of all this, Diddy stayed silent. Not a word, no posts, no interviews, just a ghostly presence, mounting absences, visible tension. His lawyers kept moving, but even they were beginning to step back. Fees were skyrocketing, cases were piling up, and defenses were becoming harder to build with no solid evidence. Every week brought new subpoenas, complaints, depositions, and around him no one remained. The artists he once championed, silent. The brands he once uplifted, gone. The longtime friends, nowhere to be seen. This wasn't a controversy anymore. It wasn't even a PR crisis. This was total collapse. His fortune, scattered, frozen, over-leveraged. His image, shattered beyond repair. His businesses, crumbling. His allies, now plaintiffs or witnesses. And him, alone, cornered, facing a judicial machine that moves slowly, but relentlessly. He has nothing left to sell, nothing left to control. He's no longer trying to persuade anyone. He's just trying to stall the inevitable, because he knows the question isn't if he will fall. The question is, how far?